G'day everyone, welcome to Footyology final siren after a pretty impressive win by Brisbane over Richmond. Of course, reprising their qualifying final clash last year, which Brisbane also won. Of course, we all know how last season finished up. Do we think Richmond's going to do it again? Well, I do, but plenty of others willing to disagree. They're certainly in a bit of a fix at this stage of the season insofar as form and catalogue of injured players goes. But Brisbane just going from strength to strength at the moment after a pretty poor start to their season. They are right back on track. We are here to talk about the game in detail. Most importantly, we're here to take your questions. And when I say we, I don't just mean myself, I mean my Footyology final siren co-host, Mark Fine. What'd you make of it all tonight, Finey?
Yeah, I loved it. Loved the bounce back by the Lions after Jack Riewoldt kick-started the Tigers. I didn't mind the lippy Lions either. What did you make of that? You know, I guess Reece Matheson and Mitch Robinson led the choir, but they were in unison by the end of the game, a little bit lippy.
Yeah, Reece Matheson might be an acquired taste, I think. I'm not sure I've got the taste for him at the moment. I like to see guys get a few more runs on the board before they start doing that sort of stuff. And it's also the sort of stuff that can come back to bite you at a later date. And I think a few Richmond guys certainly took a few things on board from his performance. But look, he played well tonight. He was important for them. Certainly a good emotional barometer for them, and Mitch Robinson has been that for a long time. So, yeah, look, good performance by them. Get your questions in, people. We're a bit slow to start here, so any disillusioned Tiger fans, are you starting to lose the faith? Are you staying strong? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about how good Brisbane's looking, or where they should stand in the premiership favouritism ladder, because certainly been impressive over the past month or so. Their midfield's strong, their defence was really good tonight, and that forward setup looking pretty potent and pretty dangerous. Let's get right into the questions. Actually, before we get into the questions, let's check the scores. And whilst we're going through them, you can fire some questions in. So the quarter-by-quarter scores first. And it was a great start by the Tigers. They had the first three on the board without reply. But we've seen in a few games this year that the side that gets off to the better start doesn't necessarily end up the side that wins the game. And thus it proved in this second half of that opening term, Brisbane sort of got their bearings, started to reassert themselves. And for most of the game, they really dominated the play. In fact, you'd argue, but for inaccuracy, probably should have been further ahead before they did get that decisive break late in the third quarter and during the last quarter. So Richmond ahead by 8 points at quarter time, but 4-2 in the second quarter saw Brisbane go to half-time with a 7-point lead, and then 4 goals to just 1 in the third term, probably the decisive section of the game. Brisbane kicking 4 in the last 13 minutes of that third quarter, as a matter of fact, to take a 24-point lead to three-quarter time. Could the Tigers come back? Well, they had a chance early in that last quarter. Jack Riewoldt had a shot for goal, would have brought it back to 3. He missed. Brisbane missed a chance, but then it was Zach Bailey who, perhaps surprisingly, equal leading goal kicker tonight with 4. He bobbed up with the first goal, and that blew it out to 30 points. Was going to be tough work for the Tigers from there, and thus it proved Brisbane holding the lead comfortably, and in the end running out 28-point winners, 15-12, 102 to the Tigers, 11-8, 74. Let's check the goal kickers. And like I said, 4 goals to Zach Bailey, also 4 goals to Eric Hipwood. He was a really strong target up forward. Singles to Coleman, Cameron, Madden, the Irishman, a pretty impressive running goal from him. Danaher, Matheson, Lyons and Zorko. For the Tigers, Riewoldt 3, Lynch 3. All those 3 goals to Lynch coming in that, in the second half for Lynch. 2 goals to Arts, 2 to Ross and a single to Naish. The best players as assessed by Mark Fine. Hugh McLuggage, I think a pretty clear best on ground tonight. He was fantastic. Gee, he had a lot of decisive disposals, I guess you'd say. Robinson, Lyons, Zorko, Hipwood and Matheson, who we will talk about throughout the show, no doubt. And for the Tigers, Finey, you had McIntosh as their best. Noah Bolter, who was pretty resolute in defence. Jake Arts, I'm glad you snuck him in there. I thought he was really good. I think he's having a really good season, actually. Toby Nankervis, pretty lion-hearted display from him in the ruck. Nathan Broad, and you did have Jack Rewalt, but I think you wanted to make a late substitution, did you not?
Maybe on both sides. Maybe Zach Bailey just for Matheson, and Lynch probably eclipsed Rewalt in the finish.
Yeah, well, he's ended up joint leading goal kicker for the Tigers, hasn't he? So I'm pretty comfortable with those best. What do you people think of that list of best players? What do you think of the result? Plenty of incident throughout the course of this game. Of course, Marlon Pickett got reported for that late hit on Brandon Starcevic. It was a pretty feisty sort of game during the second half. Anything you want to put on the agenda, not just this game, we can talk about the rest of the weekend and anything else going on in the footy world. Trout from Wood End, a very well-known Richmond supporter. Good to see you, Trout. Good to see you bobbed up, even in defeat. He says, well, what can one say? Bloody proud of the boys tonight, as 4 of our midfielders missing. We lost by just under 5 goals.
Well, hang on. Lockie Neal, Darcy Gardner, Ryan Lester, Cam Rayner. I think Brisbane go toe-to-toe with Richmond for outs.
Oh, not necessarily. No, but the point he's making is in the midfield. I mean, you take out...
Well, so how about Brisbane's defence? 10 minutes, 15 minutes into that game, we are bemoaning the fact that Leicester's not there, who beat Rewalt hands down in the final. Darcy Gardner's not there. I mean, Adams fought back bravely. But, yes, of course that midfield is severely impacted. But Dustin Martin's not in their best 8 or 9 players. He was out there. There are players out there that could have performed better. Be proud of your team. They're a great team. They'll bounce back. Don't worry about that. But don't deny the fact that Brisbane had key players out.
Well, he's not. He's just talking about his own side. I mean, I agree with Trout to the extent. I think Richmond's outs exceed Brisbane's. You take out Cochin, Prestia, Lambert. Who's the 4th midfielder you're talking about? I've missed someone there.
Edwards.
Oh, Edwards. Yeah. Well, it's a pretty significant difference. And I guess
Well, let's compare them.
Well, hang on a sec. That was shown up, I think, by the major midfield stats, which showed Richmond getting smashed in the clearances, 51 to 25, so doubled for clearances. They're not necessarily a great clearance side anyway. Hammered for contested ball, though, too, by 28. Brisbane 165 to 137, and the tackle count relatively even. So I think Brisbane ended up with a physically stronger midfield, no question about that. All right, go on.
Take out the Brownlow medalist out of Brisbane's midfield. Cam Rayner, I think everybody was appreciative of where he was about to be at his football. I mean, the ideal extra forward down there for Brisbane. And 2 key defenders, 2 very important defenders. Now, I'm not saying that those 4 aren't very important for Richmond, and they are all from the same part of the field. So that does certainly put a strain on depth in that department. But have a look at the game of Mitch Robinson and Reece Matheson. They had meaningful inputs into the game. At the start of the year, I don't think a lot of people were saying that Mitch Robinson had heaps of footy left in him. He's playing brilliantly in the last month. As for Reece Matheson, completely forgotten. I mean, so credit where credit's due. You do have to go to your backup, and in this case, Brisbane's backup has been fantastic.
Yeah, look, they were great, taking nothing away from them whatsoever. Trout asked about Pickett. He can't get rubbed out for that, Trout saying.
No, but he'd get dropped anyhow. He played such a poor game up till then. Terrible disposal, some crazy choice. A lot of, you know.
I thought Richmond were fairly fumbly tonight under pressure, which is
Pickett
unlike
started it, I thought.
I reckon he might get a week for that, to be honest. I didn't think it was terrible, but he definitely got him high, and the lateness of it, I think, is what might seem just rubbed out for a week. But then again, they put so much emphasis on consequences, and Starcevich was okay, got up and played on.
Rowan, in that incident, of course, Brian Taylor, as well as being a incredible reader of the game.
I can't tell if you're being serious or sarcastic.
No, I'm not being serious. He said something early on, and somebody must have gotten his ear and told him, because at one point he said, "I'm not sure about McStay," and then he asked Wayne Carey, "What does he do?" Occasionally, he kicks a goal or two. Probably didn't watch last week when he kicked 4. Anyhow, after that, he became a McStay fan very quickly. It's like somebody handed him a piece of paper. But it's funny because he was able to read, because there was after that incident, there was a goal. It is only mistake for the night. Starcevich turned the ball over and Richmond got that goal, remember? So there was a coming together of players afterwards, mainly Baker and Marlon Pickett. And at that point, Brian was able to read lips or minds, and he said, Liam Baker there, telling Marlon Pickett, telling Matheson. There was a coming together, and it was Matheson, and he was able to say that Baker was telling him, "You've got a fair way to go in the game, mate," and having a go there also at Marlon Pickett. But I reckon what Baker was doing, he lifted one finger up to Pickett. And I reckon he was telling him, "You're out for a week, mate." I wouldn't be surprised if that's what Baker was saying. And maybe he gets a week, maybe he doesn't. But I reckon Baker was giving him the quick tribunal and 1 week off.
To his teammate.
Pun?
To his teammate.
I
don't know. I've completely lost track of what you were saying. So Baker put his finger up to Pickett. To Reece Matheson. Reece Matheson coat-hangered Baker just before the incident. So we had the incident with Marlon Pickett coat-hangering Starcevich.
But before that, we had an incident. Sorry, this was the incident with Matheson coat-hangering Baker. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Got him right. And Brian Taylor told us that Baker was telling Matheson, "Now, hang on, mate, you've got a long way to go in this game. You haven't done much." But I reckon he was showing him the 1 week.
Well, maybe. All right, let's get on with it. David Haley says, "Do you think Richmond have the wobbles?" I don't. I keep saying it. They were 7-6 after 13 games in 2019. What are they now? 5-5.
Adelaide next week.
They've got a pretty reasonable run home, I think, certainly up to the bye, and they will get those players back. So, look, it's very tempting. Whenever a reigning premier isn't playing well, starts losing games, it's the first thing that comes in everyone's mind. I just feel after watching this Richmond era, it's way too early to jump. Look, on that score, we'll do a couple of questions on this same theme. Ryan asks, can the Tigers still win the flag if they have to play an interstate elimination final? Yes, from me.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah, they can win it from anywhere in the 8, as far as I'm concerned.
The one thing, Rowan, which I'd like to ask you and also put it to our viewers is, in previous years when they've had injuries, they have turned up some really good players that have taken the opportunity and gone on with their careers, in fact, played in the grand final. Have we turned up anybody in the last 2 or 3 weeks?
Not to the same extent. I think the important difference is that the guys who are being asked to fulfil the roles this time are having to fulfil more responsible roles. So I mean, Baker, he's not one of them, but Baker's had to step into the midfield. Collier Dawkins has had to not only come into the side, but play a key midfield role. That's a bit different to being
yeah, of course,
a Jack Ross and coming in and playing on a flank or in the pocket, you know. So, but it's true. I mean, look, last year for a while, was it last year or the year before? Mabior Chol came in and played some good football. We saw Ross come in previously and play some good football. I don't think we're seeing that to the same extent. So, look, perhaps they don't have the depth they did. But again, I don't think they're far off either. They played a particularly good side tonight, in form, on their home deck, without a score of key players. It's way too premature to be, starting to wring our hands about Richmond, I think. All right, here's one about Brisbane. Richie Blunden says, love the attitude the Lions brought tonight. Might bite them on the arse later, but so be it. Yeah, look, there was definitely a feeling of we're not going to be stood over, wasn't there? And they were pretty keen to get into Dusty when he got caught in possession a couple of times. There are two ways of looking at that. Yes, it could be making an important statement. And I think they have become a more physical team than they were a couple of years ago. But they are the sort of things that really good teams sort of file away in the memory bank. And, we've had this line about Richmond, haven't we? They don't get beaten by the same opponent twice. Well, not in the same season. And I got no doubt, a few of those lippy episodes from Reece Matheson and co will have been filed away in the memory bank.
Yeah, I look forward to the next time they meet, but I think Brisbane can back it up. They're pretty stout sort of team, aren't they, with a very solid midfield, physically and mentally.
Yeah, no, well, that's what I've really noticed that physically they are a far stronger side than they were even a couple of years ago. And I guess that's what happens. Look, they made top four 2019, went out in straight sets, took it a step further last year by winning a final, getting to a preliminary final. It's a logical progression, I suppose. But one purpose that apprenticeship, I suppose, in the final serves is it shows you the areas you do need to ramp up if you're going to go further. And I think Chris Fagan and a lot of Brisbane people would probably agree if there was one shortfall, it probably was that aggression and physical strength. So I think no doubt that's become a focus for them.
Yeah. There's a couple of players that really impressed me tonight. Coleman was very good, don't you think?
Yeah, in the second half particularly. Yeah, he had some big touches in that third quarter, I reckon.
Yep. And I know, look, it's very difficult to say this, but as we head into a couple of weeks of Indigenous round football, we're going to celebrate the brilliance of Indigenous footballers. And I don't think it's unfair to say that they bring a flair and unscripted brilliance to the game that just really takes football, to me, to the next level. And that's so true of so many Indigenous footballers. But Archie is not to that script. He is a very courageous, dedicated and close marking defender now. Boy, he's gutsy. Does he put his body where angels fear to tread? Not a high possession winner, not necessarily flashy, but very reliable.
Yeah, a more orthodox player, I guess you could put it. Tim Dole says, Lions showed that they have the game to win finals tonight, albeit a weakened Tigers lineup. All teams would fear a final up there against them. Absolutely, they would. Having said that, I mean, Geelong dispensed to them pretty comfortably in the preliminary final last year at the Gabba, didn't they?
Doesn't Joe Danaher make a big difference, though? He kicked one goal for tonight, so we haven't really seen him bust the game right open with goal kicking. But he's a mighty target. He's back to his long kicking, long, high leaping best without quite finishing it off. Imagine if he took those marks and kicked those goals. And I don't think that's impossible.
Well, I don't know. Look, I mean, trust me, I'm not saying this is a disgruntled Essendon person, but I was watching him tonight thinking I'm not sure his kicking is ever going to substantially improve from where it is now. I mean, he's been in the system a long time, and as good as that marking ability is and his mobility, and he can kick them from a long way out, but if you can't regularly convert, like, what's the point? So he's just got to put away those regulation chances. And the silly thing with him is I reckon he's a bigger chance from outside 50 on the run than he is a set shot from 30 straight in front.
Rowan, I could improve his goal kicking by 25% with one phone call.
Yeah, we'll go on.
But it would take away from another part of his game. So we saw tonight after one of his, I think, misses. No, I think it's the goal he kicked. See what they brought out to him straight after that goal he kicked around the corner? A big tube of grip it. That grip that they put on their hands. Now, you talk to a lot of footballers why they would never use grip it. Not to do with marking, it's to do with releasing the ball when they kick it. And that's exactly why a lot of players hated grip it. It definitely helps you marking, but in the drop of the ball and releasing the ball for kicking, many key forwards refuse to use it.
Well, no, it's an interesting theory. He could just have a terrible ball drop.
Not helped by the fact that he's got grip it on his hands.
Well, let's send out a message to his mum, Jo, on Twitter and see if she can answer that one for us. Cam Peterson says BT and crew are talking about Richmond's outs almost as an excuse. Lions outs more important. No, ? Well, I've already said I don't think they are. What do you think, Finey?
Well, as I said, they're very important, but I concede because Richmond's are all right in the middle of the ground, it's a case of 4 good players out from each team, but hitting at the heart of the midfield, you've got to say Richmond impacted more.
Good one from Simon Morris. He says, would you guys have Brandon Starcevic in the All-Australian squad at the moment? I think you'd have to, wouldn't you?
Didn't I say that last week?
Yeah,
Yep.
I think you did.
I did.
Yeah. No, well, he's got some good scalps, hasn't he?
Oh, no, he's a beauty. Very solid.
Yeah.
Great judgment.
Well, the bloodlines are good. He's Craig's nephew, isn't he?
Is he?
Well, I thought he was.
I don't know. I think that's correct. I mean, we had a few relatives out there, didn't we? Obviously, one from each of our clubs, I reckon, mate.
Pryor, son of Michael Pryor, former Essendon player, and who was your club's one? It's just escaping me at the moment.
I think there might have been a Ralph Smith out there.
Oh, yes, Hugo, son of Sean.
Looks different to him, but yes, that's his son.
Actually, he had a tough night tonight, particularly early. He gave away a couple of free kicks, which he was probably a bit unlucky to give away. He just seemed to be in the wrong spot at the wrong time, be almost a sitting duck, and I felt a bit sorry for him. Listen, one thing, dare I do this because it's a pet hate of mine going on about it. But maybe that's a reason to bring it up. I must admit, I don't often notice the umpiring. I did feel like Richmond got the shorter end of the straw on a few of the 50-50s tonight, and I felt like things like they were being called to play on more so than Brisbane players when they had the ball in a stop play. I don't know. Look, and the free kick count in the end was reasonably lopsided, 28-16.
Yeah.
Not that has anything to do with it, but I just I don't know. I don't think Richmond fares that well necessarily with the umpires. What are your thoughts on that?
I think they normally fare okay. Look, their players take a pretty no prisoners sort of approach. Part of their football style is pretty ferocious, and that's great. That's premiership stuff. But I thought that they were matched tonight. So, yes, I thought that they were a little unlucky. Here's what happens with umpiring. As you know, Rowan, there are black and white rules, and then there are rules where there are sort of tolerances, and that's holding the ball, etc. And now definitely playing on from a free kick or a mark is there are different tolerances, and these are set early in the game, maybe by one umpire, the first couple of decisions, and the other two umpires will hopefully step in time with that. But it's getting ridiculous, honestly. Honestly. We had a situation tonight where players were called to play on when they thought about moving, when they blinked, and it became the precedent. And for the night, we had a whole new set of circumstances whenever anybody took a mark or got a free kick. It's too, don't you think the variables are too wide on many of these grey areas?
Yeah, well, I think I'm not seeing enough consistency with it. And it looks like by various devices, like for the last couple of weeks, they've been very tough on allowing the short kick and the mark, calling 15 metres. Tonight it was about playing on when a guy, barely moved off the mark. There's clearly an intent there at the moment to keep the ball moving as quickly as possible, keep the game moving. But you have to still do that in the confines of the rules you're working with. And I felt they were a bit trigger happy on the play on calls tonight. I think that was the general, just judging by Twitter, I think that was a general sort of feeling on social media as well.
And just it was from, I think we get consistency within games, but not from games to games within a round. And there is one rule that has completely gone out the window. You can do whatever you want, basically, to a ruckman from a boundary throw-in, push him in the back, pick him up, throw him away. I find that often the infringements in the ruck are so obvious, but they're just not paid.
All right, we better zip. The questions have come flooding in, so let's zip through some. Glilb 200 says, reminded of Brisbane versus Essendon at the Gabba in 2001. Richmond, the top team, starting to falter. I think Brisbane are probably closer to that top team than Brisbane of 2001 were perceived as being at that same stage. But yeah, look, it's not a bad analogy.
You know what game I'm reminded of in 2001?
No.
Manchester United versus Liverpool, when Manchester United unveiled for the first time Italian goalkeeper, I think David Taiba, and his first half was so terrible. I mean, he came out to stop a cross, missed it by 15 metres, gave away a goal, fumbled other efforts, that they honestly were suggesting that he should have been subbed at half-time. Now, that's a bit how I felt about the early effort of Marcus Adams on Rewalt, especially when he pushed him in the back.
Yeah, he was
but
struggling.
Like Taiba against Liverpool, Taiba had a really good second half and, in fact, won them the game. United won 3-2 on the back of a couple of miraculous saves. And I thought Adams fought back brilliantly with a couple of great marks in that third quarter.
Yeah, he did. He certainly got his head together and put up a much better show after that early going. Jared Smith says, is it wrong for an Essendon fan to be happy to see Danaher doing well? No, not at all, Jared. He's a nice guy. He had his own reasons for wanting to move. I don't begrudge him any success. Austin Phillips says nothing in the Pickett incident. Fair enough. There may not be.
I know one Essendon fan who begrudges him even playing.
Yep.
He's an uncanny X-man.
Oh, yeah. Well, Brian Mannix has some pretty weird and wonderful grudges, doesn't he?
Doesn't like Danaher.
Doesn't like Usman Khawaja. I know that. All right. Kicks, good friend of a show, says, with 4 or 5-star midfielders out from the Tigers, was the best opportunity for the Lions to get them at home. Agreed. Joey Kazina says, interesting on Fox, they showed a stat that up to round 10 last year to this year, the percentage against top 8 sides is down 50%. Some big losses to top 8 sides. Do you think it's a concern? Talking about Richmond, obviously.
No.
What are the big losses to top 8 sides? Melbourne. I'm just trying to remember the other games they've lost. I've had a temporary brain explosion.
One big loss to Geelong.
Oh, yeah. They also were pretty convincing in putting away the Western Bulldogs, who are second on the ladder. Like I said, I mean, it's a pretty easy narrative to write and support with evidence. This one about the reigning champ faltering, and we've done it the media has done it at stages in each of the past 3 or 4 years. So I'm resolutely sticking to a big picture view, and I think with everyone back in harness, I still think the best side in it.
You see, anyway, one thing about Richmond, I feel, Rowan, you had teams like Hawthorn, Brisbane, the triple premiership teams. When that era was over, they might have had one more year where they were in and around the 8, but the drive to sort of limp into the finals wasn't there. Whereas Richmond know if they get into the finals in any of the 8 spots, they can have a genuine crack at winning the flag. So I feel that there is a point of difference there.
All right, Craig Morgan says, I miss Robbo as a Carlton supporter. He was always hard at it. I love the way he went about it. Thanks, Luke Darcy. But I think he's gone to another level since he went to Brisbane. I agree. No question about that. He's a much better player at Brisbane.
He kicks the ball. Sometimes he just kicks absolute mongrel punts to the point where I'm thinking, is that on purpose? But he knows how to give the ball air. You know what he is? He's got a great football IQ. He knows when to tackle. He knows when to punch. He knows when to mark. He's got a really good football brain and the courage and the body to execute all those right things, I think.
Which isn't necessarily how he was perceived as a Carlton player. He was seen as a bit of a headless chook.
Well, more for them.
Bon Beecher says, boys, Reece Matheson was interviewed after the game, described himself as a barometer. Do you agree?
He's a beauty. I like him.
He lacks confidence, doesn't he?
I mean, he did the old Reece Matheson tonight, which I don't like.
Throwing the head back.
Yeah, he should not be rewarded for that. I reckon that's the last one he'll get for the year. Towards the end of the game, on that boundary, when there was a bit of a brouhaha, I reckon he was trying to talk to Dusty as though he was almost a fanboy. Like, he was getting in other people's faces, but he was just chasing Dusty, and Dusty was sort of just didn't want to have a bar of him, but he wanted to talk to him about something.
Controversial one from Simon Fazio. He says, wondering what you think about the excessive lip from Brisbane tonight. Reece Matheson talking big game for someone who played one game in 2020 and whose biggest claim to fame is denying the Sandy Hook massacre. Please tell me that's not true.
Well, let's not go into off-field insanity. We can't verify that, Rowan.
No,
how can you deny it? That's like denying deep dish pizza.
Ask the parents of some of the victims who have been trolled
what do you mean
for the
denying
last
it?
8 years.
I guess there are people who conspiracy.
Well, the same people that deny the 9/11 bombing.
Yeah, and Port Arthur and things like that.
All right, well, geez, I hope that's not true. All right, Frogger says, g'day, fellas. Where do you stand on beast mode? Didn't mind it, taking it up to the Tigers. Have they actually called it beast mode?
Don't know. I know one thing.
What's that?
Their coach is so likable. I just find I like the way he goes down to the ground. He doesn't quite get the intentional out of bounds rule, which is not intentional out of bounds. It's not making an effort to keep the ball in play. He loses it every week on that, I reckon. But I just think he's a ripper. And I love the way when they asked Luke Hodge about Marcus Adams on Rewalt, he said, no. He backs our coach, Fags. He backs the player. There is no way he's going to move him off him. And he was right. I love him. I think he's a beauty.
Andre says, why play Martin at full forward when you've got Tom Lynch, Jack Rewalt and DR, I assume that's Dean Rioli, roaming? Well, because he's a proven goal kicker. And look, I think even Richmond say he's not a bona fide midfielder as such. He's more a forward/midfielder. And I think we're seeing more players of that ilk now. And someone I'd compare him to in the breakup of that time, and I'm not for a moment comparing them as players, but Jake Stringer now at Essendon does a similar sort of thing. He'll go into the centre for a healthy number of centre bounces because he's got great clearance winning ability like Dusty has. But his primary remit is as a goal kicking forward. Now, I think Dusty, the percentage is more evenly split, but...
No. Rowan, Jake Stringer is a superstar. If not for his body, I really believe he's the
what
equal.
What are you saying no about? I wasn't
No, I'm saying because I thought you were going to say he's, the output's not there or whatever. Jake Stringer's as good as any player in the comp except for his body. He is a dead set superstar. What a pity that his body has let him down again.
Yeah, I wouldn't have him as a superstar, but...
Really?
Yeah.
Boy, whenever he plays against St Kilda he is, and he comes back from 5 weeks off against St Kilda. He can kick goals, and he's as good a clearance player out of the middle. He's better than Dusty out of the middle, I reckon.
No, well, okay, fair enough. I don't agree.
But he doesn't play enough, unfortunately.
No, he doesn't. Paul Keane says, what is the deal with the disparity of free kicks against the Tigers? How can a side leading for 95% of the first half be 20-6 down? 4 goals came from the 20 frees to the Lions. We lose by 28 points.
I was just looking around
for
the number for the invisible frees. That is the... that's the wrong way to go about the business. I mean, it's rubbish, Rowan. There is no reason why...
I didn't say it. You have to go with
No,
Paul.
I'm saying, but let's put an end to it now. There is no correct number for frees. The correct number at the end of the game is not 21 each. Or when a team's 50 points up, 27-19. The correct number for frees is paying the frees correctly. End story. Every game in and of itself is different. Simply to look at now we felt tonight that Richmond, I think Richmond in the crushes were disadvantaged. I also see that whenever Rewalt goes for a mark, he gives away a free. I mean, he is so reckless in a pack, but he was also, tonight he was free kicked and it was not paid, but then he was given a free kick in the ruck, wasn't he, to make up for it, a shepherding free. So I think Richmond might have been on the rough end of the stick tonight, but not because of the numbers. We should never go on the numbers, should we?
No. All right, I'm going to now read through a series of comments. No response from either of us. We'll just acknowledge the following comments. Sure. So Ethan says, Richmond's midfield looks very bare with Dusty in the forward line. He has to play 100% midfield with the injuries. Frogger says McLuggage played more of an inside role coming up through the ranks, expanding his role sans Neil. James Tyrrell says, as a neutral, I must say it was nice to see the Tigers being tested and bested by the Lions. Tim Dole says, key to Brisbane attack this year has been Joe Danner. He's given their attack the extra element it was missing the last few years. James again, good to see Ralph Smith holding up okay. Looks like his dad, I might also say. Trout, again, has some mail that Adam Chera wants to come to Punt Road. Well, he can't. Trout, not letting him. That would be pretty disappointing for Freo. Joe Danaher is more likely to cost Brisbane a big game than win them on the balance of probability, says Ryan. Let's keep going. Mark Howard, Stats Insider has Bombers Essendon at 15% to make the 8. Do they think Tigers are 15% to win the flag? I don't know. They'll update those stats, Mark, but I reckon they're a far bigger percentage chance than 15. Ryan again, Richmond push the boundaries. That's their whole game plan. So hence they go over the edge the most. I'm not sure I agree with this thing about Richmond pushing the boundaries. To me, yeah, they play a hard physical game. They harass the opposition. So I guess that can see them give away more free kicks. But I've never had this feeling of them, sort of testing the limits of physical contact or anything like that. I mean, in the same way,
Lynch has bordered on that a bit, hasn't he?
Oh, at times, but like, did he tonight? I wouldn't have thought
No,
so.
not tonight.
Yeah, he has. But I mean, I see people saying Richmond are a dirty side or whatever. I don't see it. Or maybe I'm still thinking in terms of 1980s football. I don't know. I just don't see them as being a team that sort of bends the rules.
By the way, a big blue by Harris Andrews tonight. Sorry.
What was that?
He had something going brilliantly, but he just tried for too much. His man on the mark was brilliant when it was just the Mr. Floppy inflatable arms.
Wacky waving inflatable arm man.
Yeah, that was great. But tonight he added
booing. Yeah.
And then he sort of a one-footed approach. He's got to go back to the inflatable man outside the card sales. He really went away from what works.
All right. I think that kick did miss though, didn't it?
Went straight through the middle from 45 metres out. Kick of the night by Lynch because he went off Broadway.
All right. Umbreon says Richmond are out to $8 for the flag, 6th favourite. Absolute money for jam, he says.
It's not that certain. I love that expression. Money for old rope or money for jam? Which one do you prefer, Rowan?
Now, just quickly, I've got Simon has got back to us on the Sandy Hook stuff. I can't actually read that, Simon, but I might get Damon, our producer, to check that if you can, Damon. Those comments that he's linked to there on the chat window. Can you see them? Okay. Well, I think we'll leave that one there. It's pretty unsavoury stuff, but I might check that out afterwards and get back to you, Simon. All right. Beast Mode is apparently Matheson's nickname.
Okay.
And there's more people saying he is a Sandy Hook truther. All right. We will leave that one there. Richie Blundens.
Yep. Sorry.
No,
Carry
go
on. No. Something completely not to do with tonight's game. I thought you were finished.
Richie Blunden says Stringer gets 2 years only in contract terms. Too many injuries is a risk.
Yeah.
And he's got a added bit there. Taylor Harris isn't worth $150,000 either.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, well, it was a pretty sizable claim given her form this year, I suppose.
Yep.
Jack Delaney says unsociable football, as Clarko called it, can be good football. Doesn't necessarily mean dirty. Yeah, well, I agree with that, Jack. I remember the thing with Hawthorn and unsociable football. I never saw that in their game either. To me, they were always hard at the ball. They were very precise with their disposal. They were very highly skilled, but I never saw them as pushing the boundaries particularly. Did you?
Yeah. Hawthorn?
Yeah.
No, not until they decided to bring it up. Not particularly. Because I guess we were brought up following football when there really were unsociable teams. I mean, I barracked for one. In the early 70s, there's no doubt about it. When I started following football, the great allure of St Kilda was their very unsociable attitude because of the, they had Ditterich and Lawrence and various other players that were vicious. And that was a way of going about your business.
Well, they weren't too bad circa 1978 either. Ditterich, Sidebottom, Muir, O'Day.
That one afternoon at Moorabbin. Boo-hoo. And I've watched that game. I watched that game in full, Rowan. There's very little to it. Really, there is so little to the Mongrels game. Now, we go back 50 years this year and celebrate the 71 grand final. That was a piece of nastiness.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kevin Neal, the story is famous that on the Thursday before the grand final, the players amassed in the rooms and Alan Jean said, our number one problem is Peter Hudson. They've got a champion full forward. He needs to be stopped. And the voice came from all the players were sitting on the benches and the voice came from the back of the group. Consider it done. And that's all they...
I thought it was something like he can't kick goals if he's unconscious.
He said, consider it done. It was along those lines. And
yeah, go on.
Yeah, Cowboy famously, at the end of his career, Cowboy said he kept a mental ledger in his own mind in football of matters dealt with and matters to be dealt with. And he said at the end of his career, there was only one bloke in the column to be dealt with that never got dealt with. And then he confided when I was talking to him, and he said, "You know why, Mark?" He goes, "Because I couldn't deal with him." Neil Baum.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was a pretty tough hombre.
He said, I couldn't deal with him. He said
there is some pretty gruesome colour footage of Hawthorn coming back in the rooms after the 71 grand final with Peter Hudson's earlobe literally hanging off his ear. It was pretty grim stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you ask Barry Davis what he thinks of St Kilda.
Yeah. All right, let's get back on the case. Merrick Morley says, Lynch is the biggest villain in the AFL today. Prove me wrong. Well, I can't prove you wrong, Merrick. It's a contention of yours, but I think there's a lot of... it depends how you define a villain, doesn't it?
We don't have the old villains like we used to.
Well, I think I presume Merrick means in terms of cheap shots, if you like. Like Lynch had an ordinary cheap shot last year, didn't he? Was that in the Dreamtime game?
Yeah, there's not many that go on, though, is there, really?
Well, there can't be because there's cameras everywhere and it gets picked up and they get suspended. So not a heap of it.
It's funny because we did have a villain in football, but he changed clubs and he stopped being villainous.
Who are you talking about?
Well, Stephen May started out, especially in games against Brisbane, as an iron-out merchant. I think he felt he needed to because of the inexperience around him at Gold Coast, but he's anything but that at Melbourne.
Yeah, that's right. I think he got 5 weeks in one, didn't he? He was sort of running in the same direction as a Brisbane opponent and made a bit of a mess of him.
Yeah, and he got the same. I can't remember who he got. Somebody will know. I think he got the same player 2 games in a row. And of course, there's Mumford, who everybody finds his accidental smashing of people humorous for some reason.
Message here from Tim Dole, which relates to a news story today. Did you see the news story, Finey, about Port Adelaide's Indigenous jumper?
Yes, I believe that there's an Indigenous artist who believes that her work has been plagiarised.
Well, there's not much doubt about that. But her name is Elle Campbell. Tim says, big shout out to Elle Campbell, the artist letting Port use her painting for the Indigenous round jumper. She has asked that the teenager that used her art without permission be left alone.
That's cool.
Yeah, because there was a video, they did a press conference with the teenager there. Although, I mean, in fairness, I think she did say she'd seen it on Instagram, but...
That's good.
I think one area this week that has been lacking in football is definitely due diligence. So we had that with the Port Adelaide jumper. We had Collingwood appoint a director that didn't actually have the qualifications to actually vote at the board table on things, and that will only become the case, I think, early next year. It's interesting sport sometimes, isn't it? The professionalism or perhaps otherwise on occasions.
So that's a good time for me to mention, and I'm sure I get your support in this. Football has lost, and it's not a passing, far from it, to another code, to basketball. Certainly the best media person I ever dealt with in football. It's just a ripping bloke and somebody that not only his club is enormously proud of and wishes him all the best, but football should really have more Heath O'Loughlin's. So North Melbourne's, he was head of media there, but he became much, much more. After 13 years, he's going to the National Basketball League. And I'm sure because, you've had to deal closely with all media people, haven't you, Rowan, that the good ones stand out, and he's one of the good blokes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I tweeted about this earlier today. He's the pick of them for me, and always has been. And I was lucky enough to spend a week at North Melbourne in his first year there, actually, not long after he'd arrived in 2009. And he set that all up. And look, he's fantastic. And he's one of the media people that really gets the media, having come from there. He used to be a reporter for Channel 9 News, and we need more of them, not fewer. So, yeah, sorry to see you go, Heathos.
I spent a week at North Melbourne one afternoon as well.
Watching the side get thrashed?
No. Can I just say what Heath organised? I had a regular caller on Sunday nights on Finey's Final Siren.
Yeah.
From a assisted living accommodation in Frankston, who was a special needs person, but Robert, his name, a very keen North Melbourne supporter. And we had a little bet one day, and I said, if North won, I think I had to have this bet three times before I lost, because I wanted to lose, that I would make sure that Robert would be the guest of North Melbourne at training one day. And so it was all organised, transport. I met Robert and at SEN, and we drove to North Melbourne. And Heath organised not only after training that the coach came and had a chat with Robert, and Brad Scott was fantastic. Every single player out on that field came and introduced themselves to Robert, signed his football. They did a little footy clinic with him, with Drury Petrie, headed it up, and it was just an absolute... to me, it summed up North Melbourne quite a lot.
What just
Pardon
happened?
me. It summed up North Melbourne, and it also summed up Heath, who organised the whole thing. It was fantastic.
That's good stuff. What just happened to your phone there?
Well, somebody rang, so I had to decline the call, and in doing so, of course, I knocked the camera off its staunch.
Great. All right,
I'm back. And well done, Heath. And basketball needs good people, I reckon, because it's a shit sport.
Oh, no, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. Okay, well, you can deal with the fallout from that.
Do you like basketball? Seriously?
I'm neither here nor there about it. It's a lot better live.
Last 5 minutes, people say just tune in with 5 minutes to go, and that is so true.
All right, I'm just going to let that one go. Craig Morgan wants to give a shout out to Russell Green on his recovery from heart surgery. Heard his story today on SEN. Well worth a listen if you get the chance. Yeah, I didn't know that. So all the best, Russell. Great man he is. The only man I've ever seen cramp on national television. One night on, what was it, league teams, I think, on Fox Footy, and he cramped. He had really bad cramp, and they had to carry him off the set. All right.
There is an irony there, because his son was considered the fittest footballer of his time.
Stephen Green.
Yeah.
And his daughter, Angie Green, is a great person as well. She does a lot of fantastic work with the gay community, as a matter of fact. And she's a ripper as well. So big shout out to Angie. Come on, more questions, people. We're getting up towards tips time. But look, anything else you want to put on the agenda across the rest of this weekend, or just football topics generally? Any thoughts on... No, we'll let you set the agenda. So, look, we might get started on the tips. Have you got a tipping device for us, Finey?
Yes. The team that you are tipping tonight will be represented by a little-known player who's kicked a bag of goals for that team, or a surprise player.
What constitutes a bag?
Well, relatively speaking, if the club's been around for 100 years, you'd want to kick at least 8 or 9, at least. But a more recent club, maybe less.
Okay, so surprise big goal kickers.
Yep.
All right. Okay. All right, this could take some time, so we might as well get a start on it now.
Yep.
Send your suggestions through as well, people, but only as we go through the games. Don't get ahead of yourselves. So I've got to. Oh no, I think I can remember most of them. No, I can't. I'm going to get on the AFL app.
Oh, no way. I can't get on any apps.
No, I'm going to get on the app to look up the schedule of games so I can call them out.
Oh, fair enough then.
So
I thought you were getting on the goal kicking app.
No, I'm not doing that. All right.
Is there a goal kicking app?
I don't think so. I don't think so. So the first game tomorrow is 1:45 p.m. It is at the MCG, and it is Carlton versus Hawthorn. So give us your tip there, Finey.
Greg Kennedy, I'm going for.
All right. Well, he kicked 70 something in a season.
Well,
okay, he's still not a. Okay, he's not a.
Well, the big thing is he kicked 12 goals, I think, in the last or second last round of the season, and couldn't make the team in the finals.
Yeah, I think he had an injury or something close to finals. I think he would have, as a rule. Yeah, it was a bit of a hard luck story because he certainly had a pretty good season that year in 72.
Yeah, I remember one thing about Greg Kennedy, which was the first time I'd ever heard of it. I saw it on the footy replay. He kicked a goal, the umpire signalled the goal, and then a Hawthorn defender just mowed him down after he kicked it, and he kicked another one before it went back to the centre.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't know that. That taught me that rule, Rowan. I never knew that as a 7-year-old.
Well, it's happened in a grand final, hasn't it? Against your team.
Yes.
No, for your team.
No, it was, for our team against Geelong, wasn't it?
Yep, 2009. All right, I'm going with a similar ilk, Warren Ralph, who kicked 8 goals for Carlton in his first game against North Melbourne in 1984. Don't think he added too much to that tally afterwards.
Did he win Tats Lotto, or was that Ross Ditchburn?
I think that might have been Ross Ditchburn. And I think
he kicked a dozen.
Yeah, Ditchburn kicked 12 in a game.
Against you-know-who.
Was that against St Kilda, was it?
Yes, Rowan.
We've got another good candidate for Carlton, by the way, from Dion Stennard, who says Simon Beaumont. I think he kicked 8 against...
In a half.
Yeah. Is that against Collingwood?
Yeah, in a half.
Yeah.
At the MCG.
Yeah. I think I was there. Another one of those forgettables.
How about Silvani? He kicked 10 in a game.
Yeah, he did. Who was that against?
Steve, I'm not saying it was against a great team.
Now, Robert Rice has gone Lance Whitnell. I don't know if that's that surprising or, sort of lesser known. All right. So, anyway, the upshot of that is we're both tipping Carlton.
Yep.
All right. The next game is, here's that app. Gotta hate it. 2:10 p.m. at the Cattery. It is Gold Coast playing Geelong, and they will be cannon fodder, I suspect. All right, my turn to go first.
I know who you're going for. Initials GE.
Correct. Gavin
I
Exel,
knew it. That was my pick.
Who kicked, I think it was 9 against Hawthorn in the famous game at Princes Park in 1989 when the Cats led by 53 points and the Hawks came back and won.
Okay.
There you go. Scott Black telling us Warren Ralph won $880,000 in 1988.
There you go.
Not bad.
Not bad at all.
All right, so I'm going Gavin Exel. Who are you going?
That was going to be a good one. Okay, I'm going to go for. It's. I think George Ganninan.
Okay.
10 in a game.
We're talking 1950s. He was there full forward for a few years, though, wasn't he?
Would you be able to check that, Damo, if George Ganninan, G-O-N-I-N-O-N, George Ganninan, kicked 10 in a game? Otherwise, it was that other full forward, Flanagan. What was his name? Begins with F.
Fred Flanagan?
No, who was the guy who kicked 100 for them or close to 100?
Larry Donahue.
No, before him. Yeah, George getting in and yep. You beauty. George getting in and that's what happens when you get excited about getting in and George getting in 11 against Richmond in 1953. Can you also check up the first person to kick 100 goals for them? What was his name?
For Geelong.
Yep.
I thought it was Larry Donahue.
No. What was his name? Flanagan of Flanagan? No, not Flanagan. What's his name? Maloney. That's his name. Yeah.
Right. Just don't get too excited again. All right.
I'm saying, but he kicked 100 in a season, didn't he? The forgotten 100 in a season. George Maloney.
Yeah, George Maloney. Robert Rice confirms that one. Harper Pestiger, g'day Harper, says, not my tip, but I vividly remember a cracker kicking 5 for the Suns against Brisbane in their first season.
Nathan Cracker.
Would have been Nathan Cracker, yep.
Not my tip. Yeah, you're going to have to tip him if you want. If you want to mention him, you have to tip him. Did you hear John Ralph at halftime?
No, I was out getting some sustenance at halftime. What did he do?
He just came up with 3 of the greatest bits of rubbish. Now, I like Ralphie. I'm mates with him. He came up with the 3 of the greatest bits of rubbish I've ever heard in my life. It's as though somebody said, quickly, we're on, and he had no time to think about them.
Okay, what were they?
Okay, so what are we going to talk about in Wreck-It Ralph? I'm going to talk about it's not good enough for Gold Coast going to get down to Geelong with a plan of losing by 4 goals. They've got to go down and win. A 4-goal loss, that's not good enough. Mate, a 4-goal loss would be a bloody miracle. That was part 1. Then part 2, he said, and the big story from St Kilda Bulldogs tomorrow night, Steele onto Liberatore. Can Jack Steele quell Liberatore? I say he can't because he's an inside mid and he's hard to stop. Jack Steele's not going to go to Liberatore. What rubbish is that? What, Steele's going to play a tagging role in Liberatore? How did he come up with that nonsense?
Maybe someone told him.
That's not just rubbish. And then the last thing he said, and finally, which of these Hawthorn players do they let go next season? Mitchell, O'Meara, or Wingard? What's all that about?
I don't know. That's the football media now. It's like just say out there things and get people to react.
None of them made any sense. Okay, on we go.
All right. So next game is the twilight game, 4:35 p.m. Adelaide Oval. It is Adelaide playing Melbourne. Okay, whose turn is it? It's your turn to go first because I've got a ripper here, but I reckon you'll go for it as well.
Cuthbertson.
Oh, Darren Cuthbertson.
Darren Cuthbertson.
Yeah, I think he kicked 8 against Collingwood at Waverley.
Yeah, in his second game, was it?
Yep, I've got a ripper. And unfortunately, I was there and present to it. So 1979, what's his name? Damn it, Piggy. Richards, David Richards.
Yeah.
I'm going to get you to look that up, Damon, because I can remember the game. We go to 1979 and look at about round 14, 15, Essendon, Melbourne.
Did he have blonde
won.
hair?
Say it again.
Did he have blonde hair?
He had sort of thinning, nothing. Or is it Robert Walters?
Robert Walters.
Robert Walters.
9.
Yeah, kicked 9 against Essendon. And Essendon managed to lose to Melbourne the week after Melbourne had lost by 190 points to Fitzroy, conceding the record VFL score in the process. Oh, Brendan Howe's just gone for the same thing. Yep. Robert Walters kicked 9 for Melbourne against Essendon in 1979, remains the record for Melbourne Essendon, kicked only 46 in his career.
Yep.
So I was there. Won't forget it. I was pretty damn unhappy. All right. So
who was the Hawthorn player? Richard Walter.
Yeah, he was a ruckman. Played in the '78 Premiership, as a matter of fact. He'd be one of the least remembered premiership players of the last 50 years, I'd suggest. Robert Walters, a friend of Brendan's.
Good.
Actually, I probably shouldn't bring this up, but Brendan didn't he do some
tax problems?
Didn't he do some time in the big house?
Wouldn't have been in the big house. Would have been at a farm because it was a white collar affair.
Okay, well, Brendan might be able to confirm that.
That's why I said Richard Walter, because I always used to confuse them. One of them was a creative tax accountant.
All right, we've got some suggestions for Adelaide if they happen to win. Trent Henschel, says Robert Rice. That's a good one. Gary Butterfield's come up with Shane Ellen. Of course, you'd remember that one fondly.
Yeah.
Kicked 5 goals, of course, and kicked 3 of them whilst playing at half-back. That's often forgotten about that because he started up forward and everyone talks about him kicking 5, but he only kicked 2 as a forward. He kicked 3 running down from half-back. Unbelievable.
Yeah, kicked 2 as a boundary umpire. Whatever, who cares?
All right, so we're both going for Melbourne against Adelaide. Next game. Saturday evening, 7:25, Western Bulldogs taking on St Kilda at Marvel Stadium. Okay, I am going for Danny Delray.
All right, well, he kicked 8, I think, or 7 or 8.
8. I think, in fact, it might have even been 9 in a final.
Final, yeah.
92 qualifying final against Geelong. In fact, while you think of yours, I'm going to
I've got
double check that.
Mine's a beauty.
All right, so what is it?
Alan Raitt.
No.
RAIT. Kicked 10 goals against Carlton in 1933. I know that because he only played 19 games.
All right. Okay,
Have you heard of him? Alan Raitt?
No.
Look it up, Damo, against your Carlton.
Yeah, you got it right. Kicked 10 against Carlton, 1933.
Yeah, they didn't rate him.
Now, just check that 92 qualifying final. Delray actually kicked 8. Billy Brownless kicked 9. Fairly free-scoring contest, that one. 26-16, defeated 17-9.
And what a wonderful bloke Danny Delray is.
I can't say I've had the pleasure.
He's a great guy and very successful post-football. They've got a big wholesale deli business. Beautiful business.
Now, we've got a couple of good suggestions here. Shane Loveless, says Darren Pruscino.
Yep.
He might have kicked 8 one day for them.
Yep.
I'm thinking against Fitzroy.
Yep.
And then, of course, we've got a few people. This was one people would have expected us to go with, I think. John Georgiades.
Yep.
Who, of course, in his first 2 games for the Doggies, kicked 9 and then 8, I think. And I think then he kicked 5. Of course, Mitch is his son, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, he is. In his second game, I think in his second game he played against St Kilda and he kicked Trevor Barker's head off, kicked him in the head.
You know, he was a policeman. In fact, I'm just going to double check this one because I've always blamed myself for his short-lived flame on the VFL horizon because I went and interviewed him after his 3rd game.
Yep.
At which stage he had kicked. Now, I'm just going to the results quickly. Hang on a sec. Bear with me. Okay, so John Georgiades, first game, kicked 8 against Carlton, 2 in his second game against Richmond, 5 against North Melbourne in round 3. That was when I interviewed him. He was a really nice guy, good interview, and he kicked 4 more goals for the rest of the season.
Yeah, mozzed him.
In fact, he only played, and he played rounds 4, 5, 6 and 7, either missed, injured or was dropped, came back for 11 and 12, didn't play another game for the year. So fair to say Mick Malthouse went a bit cold on him. And then he only played another 6 over the next 2 seasons, and that was it. So ended up with a career total of 15 games.
Okay.
There you go. All right, let's get back to where we. So we both named Bulldogs players, didn't we? All right.
Yep.
Next one, 7:40 p.m. in Perth or Eastern Time, 5:40 in Perth. Fremantle taking on Sydney. All right, you can go first.
Tony Modra.
Oh, okay, you're tipping Freo. Tony Modra's hardly a lesser white.
Well, he was for Freo. Do you remember the day he kicked 10?
I think he played a right for Freo, didn't he?
Yeah. Do you remember the day he kicked 10?
For Freo?
Yep.
Very vaguely. Who was it against? Brisbane or someone?
No, I reckon it was at the G against Melbourne.
Do you? Oh, okay. He kicked 10 at the G against Richmond in the first game of 93, which was about his only third or fourth game from memory.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure he kicked 10 against Melbourne at the G.
All right. Well, I know. I haven't got time to look. Damo's looking it up. Yeah, he did. He did. Tim Dole's come up with Clive Waterhouse, John Hutton. In fact, I'm going to pinch Harper's suggestion here because it's a ripper. My nomination is Ben Ronke.
Oh, he kicked 6, didn't he? Or 7?
Nah, it was more than that. I think it was 7.
7 maybe.
But I could have gone with Jason Love, Darren Prashino's suggestion. Anyway, I'm tipping
You know
Sydney.
who I would have gone with?
No.
Harold Robertson. In 1918,
Yeah.
South Melbourne beat St Kilda, and in that game, they kicked 18 goals in the last quarter, and Harold Robertson kicked 14 that day.
Wow. 18 in the last quarter.
I'm pretty sure they did. Damo, can you check up that terrible afternoon at the South Melbourne Cricket Ground when St Kilda did lose their way in the last quarter?
Now,
South Melbourne St Kilda, 1918, I believe.
Dion Stennard has a very good suggestion here, which I'm just double checking. But let's see, did he kick a bag? Oh, yeah. He has gone with Shane Fell.
Yeah. How about, didn't John Roberts kick 10 in a game?
Yeah, but he was pretty good for South Melbourne and Sydney. Shane Fell only played for one season with Sydney, but he had his highest return was 6, kicked 6 against Geelong one day. Only had the one season. He was a Tasmanian from memory. Anyway, all right. So you've gone for Freo. I have gone for Sydney. So that brings us to Sunday. Don't worry.
Just before that, Damo, did you find that game in 1918? Yeah. Harold Robertson kicked 14.
Okay, I'll just keep talking to the audience while you two just do what you like.
The game was at South Melbourne's home ground.
Our producer is having a conversation with Finey.
What did South Melbourne score in the final quarter of that game?
All right. Okay, we'll get back to that one. I'll continue talking.
Oh, my goodness.
First game on Sunday afternoon is GWS taking on West Coast. That one is at 1:10 p.m. And I get to go first this time. So I'm going to go for Daniel Metropolis.
I knew you'd do that. Everything's against St Kilda. Why are you doing this?
First name that bobbed into my head. I think it was only 6, but he kicked 5 with his first 5
kicks.
First
5 kicks, yeah.
All right, so Danny Metropolis and me. Who are you going for in that one, Finey?
I'm going to go for... didn't the Q-stick kick... I'm sure he kicked 8 one day. Stupid Lynch.
Yeah, mate, the Q-stick kicked 4 in a grand final, I reckon.
Yeah, but he kicked 8 one day.
Yeah, but I wouldn't... Yeah, no, they've got... Dion's good at this. Dion's just come up with a...
Adam Hunter?
Yeah, no, what about a very short-lived, quite burly full forward they had?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so that was I reckon, against St Kilda as well.
Well, what's his name?
Okay, I've got to remember his name. I can picture him. I reckon he wore number 29 or something like that. Was he a Mac? Something? What were his initials?
TW.
Troy.
Yes.
Troy Wilson.
Yes. Good call. 7 in his third game.
Against St Kilda.
And Harper again has come up with the goods. This was a good one. It wasn't 13 though, Harper. It was 12. I remember. Mark Lecras.
Mark Lecras, of course, against Essendon.
In 2010.
Yeah, Mark Lecras.
Unbelievable evening that was. So we are both going for West Coast to beat GWS. Next game, 3:20 p.m. at the MCG. It is Collingwood taking on Port Adelaide. Who do you like there, Finey?
I'm going to go for... See, you won't let me go for Scott Hodges. Who's too good? Okay, let me think. A bag, no less. Yeah, this is a tougher one. I remember when Tredray kicked, was it against Carlton? He kicked 9 or 10?
Yep, in 1998.
But we can't hardly put Tredray in as a obscure player, can I?
You can't, no.
No, I cannot.
Got a good one if you were tipping Collingwood.
His father?
No, Dale Woodhall.
Tredray's father played for Collingwood, didn't he?
Yeah, Gary.
Oh, yeah. Collingwood, yeah. Dale Woodhall. What a shocker he was.
Queenslander.
Yep.
All right, well, I'll keep reading that while you're thinking. Luke Williams suggests Heath Shepherd. Short-lived Collingwood player. Yeah, well, if you're tipping Collingwood.
But we're not. I'm tipping Port Adelaide. I'm trying to think of somebody who kicked a surprising bag of goals for them, but I can't really.
All right, well, I'm going with one. I'm going with John Butcher.
Oh, that's a good one. He had one day out, didn't he?
Do you know, I watched the Northern Territory Grand Final live on stream in March.
Yeah.
Guess who kicked the goal which enabled Nightcliff to tie the scores and force the grand final into extra time?
Ralph Clark.
John Butcher.
Yeah?
Yep, the rather burly
bigger than he was.
But no, still decent player though. He kicked a goal, took a mark with seconds remaining, and Nightcliff a goal down, played on, snapped over his shoulder. It was shocking conditions. Tied the scores, and they then went on and won in extra time. So he won them the flag, basically.
That's a good effort. If it was Adelaide, but he was Adelaide. The player whose name was written Cockshell but had to be called Coshell. Didn't he kick 5 one week?
I don't even remember the player.
Was it Adam? His surname was Cockshell. But like I heard on one day they were playing, and the first time he took a mark, he was called, the commentator said Coshell, and I've been told by him and his parents it's definitely Coshell. No, it ain't. You might want it to be Coshell, but it's Cockshell. Oh, he kicked a goal, did he? That's
right,
the old...
I'm going to help you along here. Yeah, all their leading sort of individual goal kickers are predictable.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Oh, there's one that isn't.
Who?
Well, actually, there's 2. All right, I'll give you a clue.
Yep.
One of them who kicked 7 in a game played formerly for a Victorian club, then went to Port Adelaide.
Fabian Francis.
No. No, more recently.
Played for a Victoria club, then went to Port Adelaide.
Correct. And he kicked 7 in 2013 in the game against Geelong.
It's pretty. There'd be a few players.
He was a half-forward flanker. Had an okay career at his first club.
Did he come from North?
Nope. But you're in the right geographical territory.
From Essendon?
Yeah.
Cockatoo Collins?
Nope. No, this guy, not Indigenous.
Oh, not Indigenous.
Very pale looking.
Was he a redhead?
Nope. He's a South Australian.
Felky? No. Was he muscular?
Nope.
Was he lean? Was he?
He was pretty nondescript looking, really. I'll give you the initials.
Monfrey.
Yes, Angus Monfries.
Oh, he was a decent player.
Yeah, he was all right. And the other one who kicked 7 that isn't a name. Oh, he was a goal kicker, Daniel Motlop. Kicked 7 for Port against Essendon in 2008. So we're both tipping Port there. Other suggestions, Brett Ebert got 5 once. That's a bag these days, says Tim.
Yeah.
Shane Brewer, says Austin Phillips. But
he kicked their first goal.
Well, I didn't see Shane Brewer in the list of high individual goal tallies, so I don't think so.
Did he kick their first goal?
I don't know. I was at the game, but I don't think they kicked any goals. And they Essendon beat them by about 100 points. First goal at, they played in the first game at Docklands. First goal, pretty sure it was Michael Wong kicked the first goal. Anyway, speaking of Essendon, final game of the round is Essendon taking on North Melbourne at 4:40 p.m. on Sunday. Okay, I'll go first. As I hope you can have here, but I think the most obvious one actually
is Kyle Remus.
Correct. Well, you can have Kyle Remus.
No, I'm not going Kyle Remus. That's too.
I'm not going Kyle Remus. It's too.
No,
you don't like them too easy, do you?
No way.
You want to comb through the record books for 10 minutes?
No, I'm going to think of a better one.
All right. I'm going to go with Wayne Primer, who kicked bags of 7 goals 3 times in the first, I think, 6 or 7 rounds for Essendon in 1978. And he was a little man.
Yeah, no teeth. Number 15.
Correct. All right, so who are you going with?
I reckon Andy Wilson kicked 6 once, but I'm not going for him. Did Bernie Jones have a day out for Essendon?
No. Bernie Jones never had a day out for Essendon or Hawthorn.
I reckon Stephen Torbett did.
No. No.
I'm trying to think of a big ruckman that had a day out for you.
Simon Madden, he had a few. Paul Salmon.
Well, Madden and Salmon hardly going to count, are they? No. How about we go for... Yes, who would have kicked a lot of... Now, it's not going to be a huge haul, but Barnard, didn't he kick a lot of goals for you in an important game?
Well, he kicked 4 in a grand final.
Correct.
Yeah, all right, okay.
That was unexpected, wasn't it? Was he expected to kick 4 in a grand final?
Probably not.
I'm going to go for Alan Izard.
Okay, yeah, I think Izard might have kicked 8 in a game.
Yeah, I reckon he did.
I'll look that up quickly.
Alan Izard. What a good player he was.
He was a very good player.
He's a little champion.
All right, let's have a quick scan through his best goal-kicking performances. Kicked 5 once. Kicked 5 3 times. I kicked 7 against Hawthorn in 1986.
That's good.
Kicked 7 against Footscray in the first round of 87.
Good player.
Yeah, that's about it for goal hauls for Bluey Izzard.
Okay.
Yes, he and Darren Williams, of course, both famously coming into that Essendon lineup mid-1983, ended up playing in 2 premierships, both of them. All right, I think we're just about done.
Did Mark Williams ever kick a lot of goals for you?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
No, never, never.
No, Austin Phillips, Stuart Cramery. I think he kicked 8 in a game. Got a couple of good North Melbourne suggestions. Adrian McAdam, of course, that incredible 1993 season he had 50-odd goals up after about round 10 or something. It was amazing.
Yeah. I remember when Stephen Easton kicked 5 against Carlton.
For North Melbourne, yeah.
Yeah, that was a shock.
And then he ended up playing for Carlton.
Yeah. Do you remember when Kerry Good kicked 10 for Carlton?
Who?
Kerry Good.
Kerry Good played for North Melbourne.
I mean, for North Melbourne, sorry, for North. Do you remember when he kicked 10?
Oh, yeah, against Melbourne, I think.
Against Melbourne, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Craig Davis might have kicked a 10 for Carlton.
Yeah.
He kicked some real bags, didn't he, Craig Davis?
Yeah. Pretty good player.
When Alan Davis?
Yeah.
Kicked 10, I think, against Collingwood from a half-forward flank for St Kilda.
All right, you done?
Yeah.
Okay. I reckon we're done. All right. Thanks for viewing, everyone. I'm struggling to remember the game we did. Brisbane and Richmond. Good win to Brisbane tonight by 28 points over the Tigers. All right. Final question, Finey. I want a one-word response. Will Richmond win the 2021 premiership?
Ooh, tougher tonight, but I'm going to say yes.
All right. I'm saying yes, and I won't waver for a while yet. All right. Thanks for your company, everyone. You can hear from us again Sunday evening on the podcast when we review every game in what should be a big round 10.
Just before we go, I've got one last question, Rowan.
All right. Go on.
You played full forward. You said you were a good kick at goal.
That was a great kick.
What's the most you ever kicked in a game? How old were you and against whom?
All right. Well, I mean, I only played school footy, but I kicked 10. I kicked 10. How old was I? I was 14. I kicked 10 for John Gardner High School against Ardoch High, who were pretty ordinary opposition, to be fair. I think the final score...
You didn't need to... That's obvious.
Well, I think the final score was like 30-20 to a few points or something. But they did have Graham Yates, former Melbourne player, playing for them, and I did play on him at one stage and kicked a few on him. So he also got, he had a tough day of it, Graham Yates, that day, because he got into a fight with our one of our tough guys, and we had a few, and this guy gave it to him, and Graham Yates famously, well, at our school it was famous, famously said to him that he was going to get his old man's air gun and blast this bloke of ours that hit him. Anyway, he didn't. But, 10 was my best haul.
Rather than that, he went on and played 200 games of league footy.
Yep, which is 200 more than I did. But, well, what might have been? No,
I'll tell you one thing I'm almost certain of.
What's that?
Would have been easier getting a kiss out of Elle McPherson than a handball off you, I reckon.
Yeah,
once you wrap your hands around that ball and stuff.
That's true. I was pretty hungry.
BT would have hated you because when you marked it, I reckon you turned your back.
Yeah, yeah, I did. But I do remember this particular day. We played at Faulkner Park in Paran. What I remember about it is the ball, I just couldn't get away from the ball. It just kept coming to me. And I remember there was one that was sort of running across the boundary line, and I just happened to get there, picked it up, threw it on my left boot, didn't even look, and it just went right through the middle. It was just one of those days. Anyway, good note to finish on. All right.
And then you woke up?
No, it actually happened. We'll talk to you again Sunday night with the Round Review podcast. If you'd like to support us, please head to footyology.com.au and there are several links there to Patreon. Become an official Patreon subscriber, an official Footyology patron at Patreon for $7 Australian per month. All funds go to just keeping the operation alive. Trust me, we're not making big dollars out of this at all.
Now, I've just got to have this one final moment.
Of course,
I've got no idea what jumpers John Gardner High wore.
Right.
But I picture you in a long sleeve maroon jumper with a blue V and blue cuffs and white shorts.
No, I didn't like the long sleeves. No, I fancied myself as having a decent racket that age.
But what colour was it? Not maroon with a blue V? Give me something ugly.
I'll give you a clue. Do you know where John Gardner High School was?
Next to John Gardner train station? I don't know.
Well, it was. It's still going. It's now called Auburn High School.
Okay. How's that a clue?
And well, because Auburn is an area, and prior to that, it was rebranded Hawthorn Secondary College.
Oh, you weren't wearing Hawthorn jumpers, were you?
You were wearing Hawthorn jumpers.
Oh, that'd be such a great sight. You in a short sleeve Hawthorn jumper with the white vinyl. You know, Hawthorn used to have on the back the white vinyl with the black numbers.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. This is like the very late 70s. They had.
Did you have the temerity as the full forward to be number 26? Because if you did, I'm coming to your place now.
No, I wasn't.
Shit out of you.
I might have gone the Gladys Moncrief number 6. Actually, I can't remember what number I had, to be honest.
You were 26, you cheeky bastard.
No, I wasn't. I was a better mark than Hutto. All right, this is come on. We're forging a reputation as not being overly self-indulgent. We're now destroying that in the space of one really boring anecdote. All right, podcast Sunday evening. Check out footyology.com.au. Some really good stuff on it this week. By the way, if anyone's a fan of the Eurovision Song Contest, we're going to have a review of it up online pretty shortly afterwards, courtesy of our resident TV reviewer, who is also a Eurovision freak. And I don't know what's wrong with her. It'll be about the last thing I'd be watching, but there you go. Some people like it. All right, time to go. Have a great weekend, everyone. Hope your team has a good win, and we'll catch you later.